Three letters. I repeat, three letters. G-A-Y. You heard me right. Gay. How many times have you called someone gay? How many times have you wondered if someone was gay? Or how many times have you heard it in your classroom? I know I, for one, have not. Which brings me to the question, does society shape academics, or do academics shape society? To everyone gathered here, why is what we learn influenced by societal beliefs and not the other way around? Why are these societal beliefs allowed to shape and influence everything we're exposed to at younger stages? Even before a baby is born, a color is assigned. And sometimes, even the right to live. Hot Wheels and Barbie dolls are meticulously ingrained into our worldview of what is masculine and feminine. And these views turn into beliefs which become a stereotype. I repeat, a stereotype. Singular. A stereotype that you will attribute to every single conversation you could possibly have during your lifetime. And it really constrains our perspective, doesn't it? Instead of truly understanding another individual, decoding them for who they are, we comfortably choose to stay in the comfort of our assumptions. It's a very convenient option, isn't it? We have set voices in our head telling us what's normal and what's abnormal. And for me, these beliefs made a wall. A physical, social, and mental boundary. A symbolic manifestation of what the world thought of me. And it was mostly made up of the word feminine. And in other words, I was becoming an interesting inquiry of society's gender stereotyping. And as the years went on, the wall strengthened with varying stereotypes embedded into its very core, the mindset. I have a picture of my Dora kitchen over here. That's probably me 3 years old. That's me playing with the pink-colored kitchen set. I never actually watched the TV show, but I loved playing with that. I had it with me till I was 5. Tell me, when was the last time you saw a boy playing with the pink-colored kitchen set? I don't remember the last time. And I think it was there that my journey of being ever so slightly different from the rest began. But let me take you a couple more years down to show you where the boundary actually began to become apparent. Let me show you what I'm really talking about. Chapter 1, at the brink of adolescence. When my voice cracked, people around me started making observations. Observations about how my voice was more high-pitched than the average boy. Observations about how I didn't like playing football or playing video games, but would much rather be doing music, reading a book or doing artwork. My love for self-expression was misconstrued as overly emotive, and these led to microaggressions. Aaryan, why are you so emotional? What was I to respond to them? And these led to assumptions about my sexuality. I hated the way I sounded. If someone played a recording of me, I couldn't bear to listen to it because there were questions. Aaryan, why do you sound like that? Aaryan, why do you walk like that? To these questions, I had no response because I wanted to pretend like I didn't care. So I politely smiled and walked off, but spent that whole evening thinking only about this, and more often than not, this ended with me sobbing in my room. The wall had begun to rise. As that wall rose, people further started making assumptions. Questions about my gestures. Aaryan, why do you move your hands so much when you talk? And these led to self-questioning. Why do I move my hands so much when I talk? And what this did was created these little triggers. One tiny trigger, one seemingly trivial question would make me entirely rethink who I was. Think about what caused that person to form that assumption about me. Should I change myself just so that these people would stop forming assumptions? And as you can see, the wall was steadily rising. So much so that it threatened a space that was truly mine. Music. You wouldn't really expect it there, would you? For some context, I have been learning Carnatic music for the past 9 years. And when preparing for another performance, I stumbled upon yet another unknown systemic barrier. The mridangam and the violin, the mridangam is a pitched percussion. These are two accompanying instruments often given to live performances, and that's me over there. That's the mridangam and that's the violin. And these are tuned to generally 1 or 2 specific keys for a male around a C, and 1 or 2 specific keys for a female around a G or a G sharp. I, on the other hand, was at an A. And for those of y'all without a technical understanding of music, I was singing at a key closer to that of a female than that of a male. However, for the performance, I was compelled to choose to either sing at one of those 2 specific keys or to sing with an electronic backing track. And who wants to do that? Where was the space for the people who sang in the keys in between? Where was the spectrum? Which brings me to chapter 2, binary versus the spectrum. The wall was caving in, absorbing adjectives and stereotypes instead of deflecting them, owning them so they became me and I, them. I had become a part of that wall. I hated the word gay just like many of y'all in the audience. I distanced myself from it because I didn't truly understand what it meant or how it felt. But I was raised to be a compassionate individual, a person who valued diversity in society. And when I realized how much I had distanced myself from this word, it shocked me. So this realization prompted me to understand a little more about our gender construct, a little more about queerness. We have largely understood sex to be the male or female, but did you know that there can also be intersex? We have largely understood sexual attraction to be between a man and a woman, but did you know that it could be between a man and a man and a woman and a woman? We have largely understood gender expression to be either masculine or feminine, but what about gender fluid? The perception that the world and its people are binary, from your airplane tickets to your school admission forms, to the confusion between my non-stereotypical gender expression to my sexual orientation. Despite not identifying as non-binary, these confusions reinforce so much negativity, loads of self-doubt, growing insecurities, and a general lack of confidence. So what did I do to deal with this negativity, to deal with these triggers that I face on a daily basis? I turned to my grades, I focused on them, focused on improving them. I occupied my time with school events. But did this work? No, it did not. Because every time someone asked me a question on those lines, it threw me back at that wall. It reminded me of all the negativity. So what does one do when faced with such negativity? You claim your space. Chapter 3, claim your space. So is it possible to be indifferent to all this negativity as an adolescent? I don't think that's realistic. But would it be okay if I lashed out every once in a while? Again, not very realistic. But what about a space in between? These experiences prompted me to reach out to people close to me. But even that was difficult. To tell people that I was struggling, to make myself vulnerable, to put myself out there in front of people who also had a perception of me. A driven boy, determined to do well, so focused, surely he wouldn't face these issues. But as time went on, these conversations became more comforting than they were intimidating. And I had managed to transform that wall from something negative, something overwhelming, to a warm embrace. I had managed to transform that space within that wall from something that I was constrained to my own space. A space free of judgment where I could just be myself. This experience was also very unique because it taught me how to nurture relationships that enabled me to be myself and severe ones that didn't. Now, I'm not saying that I got a conclusion or a quick fix to this problem, for I still face these encounters today. I may still face them after this talk, but I have learned to navigate them for my own peace. For me, it was a label on my gestures. For someone else, it may be the color of their skin. It may be their fluency in English. It may be the fact that they're neurodivergent, the fact that they face an issue with their body. What about them? So many diverse traits, but when these get criticized, when these get put down, the triggers become self-induced. How do you think a dark-skinned girl feels when she looks at herself in the mirror, thinking about society's obsession with fairness? I used to walk in front of a mirror, looking at my two legs, seeing how they crossed, seeing what was wrong or different about my gait. And in this, my self-esteem was crushed. What do I do next? How do I handle all of this? So, my point today is, we all may face these self-induced triggers. And in those untrue reflections that we see in the mirror, that I saw in the mirror, the sheer brilliance of human potential gets completely overshadowed. So what can we do as a society? We can normalize these traits, right? Which brings me to chapter 4. A normalized society. What would that look like? So, am I actually gay? To those of you in the audience who have a response to this question, I hate to break it to you, but you wasted 12 minutes of your time. But then again, who can blame you? This is something we hardly talk about with seriousness as friends and as families, or in classrooms for that matter. And in this, queer consciousness gets crushed before curiosity can even begin. And with this, so do the voices that stand up for social justice and universal human rights. When these voices get crushed, we end up with a heterogeneous group of people defining what the term normal means in our society. And that leads to a very heavily biased normal society. How can we call it normal? It's almost like it's an oxymoron. So is it possible to be bias-free? Well, I think that's up to you. But I have 3 suggestions for you. Number 1, grapple and understand diversity. Diversity varies from you and me. It varies from person to person. But by definition, diversity is different. It is not the same. Number 2, apply your understanding of diversity to daily interactions. Your daily help, someone you may see on the road, a friend, a sibling. Apply it. Be conscious. And appreciate the beauty of the word diversity. And number 3, normalize differences. If you are different from me, that is normal. If you have mood swings and get angry, that is normal, but you have to overcome that anger. Just like how you have to overcome your bias against the queer, your bias that causes you to form assumptions at face value. So what am I trying to say? Inclusion isn't an endpoint. It isn't a destination that one reaches, but a journey one embarks on. It is a journey characterized by questioning long-held self-beliefs, by being more conscious of the language we use on a daily basis, of creating a space that embraces differences, not one that criticizes. It can start with something as simple as standing up for yourself today, or for someone else for that matter. And I am on that journey too. The chapters of my life will go far beyond this talk. But these encounters and these learnings stay with me. So, to summarize, you can choose to see this raised wooden platform as one that is hot, squeaky sometimes, and uncomfortably puts me in the spotlight. Or you can choose to see it as a raised wooden platform that allowed me to share my story with you. It really is just your choice. All I ask is that you acknowledge this and make this choice consciously, for every being who passes by us is deserving of that choice. And you have the power to make it. The people around me, some were unaware of this choice. Some chose not to make this choice. But my final question to you, what would you choose? Thank you.